think. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me now? Because I think some problems with the sound. I have sometimes some problems with the sound. I think now it should be better. Yeah, now it's working. Okay, that's nice. So good evening, everyone, once again. And welcome to half finals. We are waiting for the games to begin. Magnus Carlsen will try his best to be back. He lost yesterday. And we saw this amazing match of Arkadij against Wesley So. So yeah, Wesley So needs as well to give his best. Still, we are not seeing the first moves. Let's wait a little bit. There are some other events as well running. But of course, we are going to focus the attention on the Magnus Carlsen event. So let's wait a little bit for the games to begin. By the way, of course, it would be interesting to know who is your favorite. Who do you think? Is it possible today for Magnus to be back? As well, yeah, it's gonna be very exciting. How will do actually Anish Giri, who is playing lately very strong. So I think both of them, Jan Nepomniachtchi and Giri, they seem to be in an amazing shape. Just great shapes. Fun to watch the games of both. Playing very well. And we see the games has started. So yep, here we go. Jan Nepomniachtchi with white in the first game. For Jan Nepomniachtchi today, a result of 2 versus 2 is enough to get to the final. And the same we have for Anish Giri, who managed to win the last games yesterday against Wesley So. So he won his match as well, 2.5 to 1.5. Let's see if Wesley So manages today to be back. And the same goes, of course, for Magnus Carlsen. In the first game, we are seeing Spanish, and this time Magnus Carlsen is changing to the main Spanish, bishop e7. We do remember he tried against Nepomniachtchi's knight take e4, so the open Spanish, but this time he goes with bishop e7. Jan Nepomniachtchi with d3, early d3, so he is not playing the rook e1 move, which of course is the main reply. We have the move d3, b5, bishop b3, d6, a3. All is still theory. And we have the move rook b8, which is actually not the main line currently. We have a couple of replies here for black. We have as well moves as bishop to g4, knight to d4, but bishop e6 there is as well, and knight a5 as well. Interesting that Carlsen is going for the line with rook b8, because as far as I remember, white is doing a bit better in this line with rook d8. Yes, exactly, knight d5 is the main one. So Magnus is taking on d5, continuing with this move bishop to d7. Of course, black tries to be solid here. With white, you might try to play c3. So it is sort of a slow play position. We can expect a positional game. And actually the position is quite safe for white, which is nice. On the other hand, Jan Nepomniachtchi is really a very aggressive player, especially with the white pieces. So he is pushing, he does not care so much about the result. So basically he's... of course, he can lose the games, Jan. But on the other hand, Jan can win as well a lot of games. So no fear in the eyes of Jan Nepomniachtchi, which makes him super dangerous. And as we saw yesterday, he managed to win his mini match out of 4 games against Magnus Carlsen. Today he needs to hold to a draw to get to the finals. It's going to be very exciting if he manages to get to the finals, because of course Magnus is going to give his best. Magnus has 2 games with a white color. Let's see if Magnus is able to be back. Now we have Wesley So against Anish Giri. The game has begun as well. Anish continues playing the Naiditsch, so he starts with the move d6. Just a little tea for me. And of course, good evening Everyone, once again, I see Norse is down, as usual here, very active. I think the most active guy in the chat. Hello, Norse is down. I hope the things are well today, and yes, that we're gonna enjoy some great games. So we have Bishop b5 by Wesley So. Wesley So is not going for the main lines of Naiditsch. Bishop b5 check, knight d7, bishop a4. Usually we're not seeing this move bishop a4 instantly, usually after the move c4. So I guess after the move bishop a4, Wesley So still has the option of playing c3 somewhere. Sorry, somehow I don't know what happened. So bishop a4, knight f6. e4 is under attack, and Wesley So continues with a short castle, so he's sacrificing this pawn on e4, and indeed it is still theory in case black is taking on e4 with white. Usually you're continuing with the move, with the move d4, of course, to get from d2 to c4. That would be nice, but it's not very legal. So yeah, d4. Then white goes with rook e1, gaining some tempo because the knight needs to go back from e4 to f6 usually, and white is having some counterplay for the pawn down. So this is like the key idea. This is why Giri goes with e6, so very safe. Anish Giri with the black color. Rook e1, a6, c4, so we're sort of back to the main lines. Bishop e7, knight c3, and yeah, queen c7, all is still theory. Knight e5, bishop b3. Well guys, it looks a bit ugly to put the bishop on b3. This is sort of disadvantage of this whole system for white. On the other hand, we have this Maroczy hedgehog pawn structures, which are favorable for the white color. We have the bad bishop on b3. This is, of course, not a big problem for white that the bishop is on b3, but I think, objectively speaking, black is having quite a decent counterplay in this sort of positions, so I would evaluate position as very playable for both colors, as white and of course as black. So we have knight g6 played by Giri, king h1 played by Wesley So, and we have rook e8 by Giri. So I think he's preparing somewhere the move d5. I'm not sure actually if d5 is something that Giri might play during the next moves. I don't think so. But I believe he wants first to get b6, then bishop to b7, and I guess then the move d5 is going to be much more powerful already. So Wesley So needs to be always very careful with the move d5. Sorry guys, I don't know why I'm coughing now. 10 minutes ago everything been fine, now I started to cough. Maybe it's the tea, strong tea. I like to drink black tea with lemon. Rook e8, very normal, b6, bishop b7, we might expect next, and Wesley So will consider if he's going with a move f4, f5 next, maybe not, maybe he's going to play just rook bishop to d2, get his rook to c1 first. The rook on c1 is perfectly placed against the queen on c7. In any case, it is a very playable position for both colors, and so he needs to do something. He lost his match yesterday. Today he needs to score at least 2.5 points out of 4 games. It is we're in game 1. He needs to show something. In case in game 1 he will make a draw or even lose a game against Anish Giri, it will be for Wesley So already very tough to recover from that. So important game for Wesley So. Yeah, North is down, exactly, yeah. b5, d5 are the two typical ideas. I guess to play for b5 is going to be very difficult, yeah, because we have the pawn on c4, knight on c3, knight on d4, so to get b5, very difficult, but d5, yeah, d5 definitely. Let us go back to Jan Nepomniachtchi and Magnus Carlsen. We saw this position after bishop d7. Jan Nepomniachtchi with a move b4, quite typical. He's winning a bit of space on the queen side because, as expected, the game is going to take a positional turn. b4 is quite useful. Bishop f6 by Magnus Carlsen, very typical as well. He gets his knight to e7 next. The bishop on f6 is permanently not in best shape, but as black, you're always able to get g6, bishop g7 back. So it's sort of a nice trick here. After you play bishop f6, you have this idea of playing g6, bishop g7. This is why bishop f6 is pretty normal. Bishop e3 by Jan Nepomniachtchi as well. Knight e7, bishop b3, knight to g6, and a4 played by Nepomniachtchi. Wow, a4 is a bit unexpected. It is very early for a4. More typical, maybe first to play h3, actually. Maybe then you might try to go for rook e1 with the idea of playing d4 somewhere, maybe just knight d2 somewhere, or maybe even c3 somewhere. So in a more positional manner. And we have Jan Nepomniachtchi with a very concrete a4. Magnus is taking on a4, yeah, why not? And he gets a pawn on b4. So I believe it's a bit strange what Nepomniachtchi is doing. It's going to be so tough now to get advantage for white. I think the position is just equal. So most probably we are going to see a draw in the game of Nepomniachtchi and Magnus Carlsen, at least in the first round, because a lot of pieces has been changed. With black, it's almost impossible to win such a position. White is doing minimal better, so we have this 51 to 49. I think it is just a draw. We are just going to see a draw in the game Nepomniachtchi Magnus Carlsen in the round 1. Nepomniachtchi forced it with a move a4. A bit strange. Usually Nepomniachtchi is not doing such things, but maybe he feels a bit tired. The guys already played so many games. They had this qualification tournament, 15 games, first match and 8 games. Now another match with 8 games. So till you reach the finals, you're really exhausted already. It is so hard to play this rapid games, to play 5 games a day, then 4 games a day. And you're not just playing the games, you are as well preparing for the games. So it makes you very, very tired. It costs you really a lot of energy. So maybe Nepomniachtchi wants to save a little bit of his energy, places a4 move. Now the pieces are getting changed, and I believe soon we're going to see a draw. I guess Magnus will find a way to change his queens. He will get his knight from g6 somewhere to a more decent square, maybe over f8 to e6, or maybe to d7. In case of Nepomniachtchi, you have this knight d2, knight c4. Still, maybe Nepomniachtchi will try a little bit here with white, but I guess it all should end in a draw. Yeah, at a rush, that's true. The pawns are mirrored. Yeah, very symmetrical position. Wesley saw against Anish Giris. We see some action, at least a little bit of it. Rook e8, and very interesting, after b6 now we see the move of Wesley, so bishop a4. So Wesley, of course, is not very happy with the position of the bishop on b3, which is not perfectly placed. So he's going for this bishop a4, changing his bishops and going rook c1. I think very nice play by Wesley, so this I like a lot. And I believe now white is doing a little bit better. Not much better, but we are a little bit better, because the bad bishop from b3 is gone. Now it's going to be very difficult for black to get the move b5 or d5. We have the knight on g6. As we have to remember, the knight on g6 is misplaced. In case we're playing hedgehog, we should try to keep the knights on d7 and f6. The knight on g6 is having currently a bad position. So maybe Giri will try to get his knight over e5 somewhere back to c6. But he's losing a lot of time. So I think Wesley is doing better. Anish Giri with rook c8, trying to grab the pawn on c4. Of course, there is a move b3. And Anish Giri goes with queen b7. Very typical as well, queen b7. And just imagine now, in case the knight would be not on g6, but the knight would be on f6. So for black, it would be possible to get the move d5 next somewhere. Now with the knight on g6, it is very difficult. So in my opinion, the position of white is better. Wesley So is going to try somewhere to play the move f4. I don't know if instantly f4, or maybe he's going to prepare the move f4, but I think f4 is something that we are going to see, because it's the main idea of white, to play f4 and at some moment to play f5. There will be huge pressure on the e6 pawn, and in case the pawn moves to e5, we have the nice square d5 later. So it's not easy for black to react against f4. Maybe initially, Wesley So has a lot of time to prepare this move f4, so he might put his queen a little bit better, maybe to put the queen first to d2, maybe first even to play f3, just to be sure that nothing is going to happen. With the knight on g6, Giri is always suffering a little bit, so Wesley So is doing currently better, yes, very nice. Jan Nepomniachtchi and Magnus Carlsen, indeed we do see the move knight f8, so this is something that we've been predicting quite well, yeah, because the knight from g6 has to move, the knight has to move to e6 or to d7, and depending on the idea of Magnus Carlsen. So knight f8 is very natural. It looks like a little bit strange why to move the knight back, but we have to put the knight to the right position. The knight on g6 basically is now out of play. So that's why Magnus Carlsen gets his knight back to play. Jan Nepomniachtchi with the move g3, very nice positional move g3. This is as well something that we have to remember. g3, h4 is a nice pawn structure for white. Knight e6, you see after knight e6 the pawn g3 is covering the square f4, which might be useful later. And h4, very typical. h5 played by Magnus Carlsen. Of course, white, as black, you should maybe not let white get to h5. Of course, h5 is not the end of the world, but on the other hand, it could be somewhere, maybe in some endgame, quite unpleasant in case white gets the pawn to h5. This is why black is playing h5, just in case. And we have almost a symmetrical position once again. In case it would be turn of Magnus Carlsen, I guess g6 should be a normal continuation. And after g6 we have indeed almost to 100% symmetrical position. We have knight d2 by Nepomniachtchi as well. Knight d2, this is something that we could see coming, because knight should get to c4 sooner or later. g6 by Magnus Carlsen, very normal. And Nepomniachtchi comes with queen d5. Now the game is getting sharp. So queen d5, quite unexpected, I think, because you're not thinking in a position like that. In case you're with a black color, you're not expecting move as queen d5. You're calculating much more queen c4, knight c4. Maybe you're thinking about queen b7, but you're not expecting the move queen d5, which is very interesting actually. Queen d5. In case black is taking on d5, e take d5, then knight is getting to e4. It's getting very, very tricky. So Magnus Carlsen needs to think what he's doing next, and he's playing queen a4. Jan Nepomniachtchi is going with knight c4, so very interesting. Jan Nepomniachtchi is playing for a win. He doesn't want to make a draw. White is clearly pushing, because now the pawn on c2 is very weak. And with a move as knight c4, I think white is risking as well to get worse, because it depends. At the moment, c2 is not hanging because the rook on a8 is under attack. So, for example, Magnus Carlsen, he might try to play something like rook d8 now, with the idea of playing c6 next. c2 is hanging, so knight c4 is a very double play. It might be very good for Jan Nepomniachtchi, but it might be as well something quite risky. Let's see how the game ends. At least Nepomniachtchi is showing great fighting spirit. So he is not playing for a draw. He wants to have a game against Magnus Carlsen. He is not afraid of the world champion, which is great to see. Bezoweb, thank you. Thank you. In case you like the stream, thank you for the nice comment. Let's see. Let's go back to Wesley So and Anish Giri. So we have Wesley So playing f3. Okay, so he is not going for the direct f4. He goes for the slow play, f3. He has a lot of time because once again the knight on g6 is still badly placed. Giri with bishop f8 preparing the move d5. Wesley So with queen d2, so he is controlling the move d5 because in case black plays directly d5 we have this e5 idea. So the knight will have to leave somewhere, let's guess d7 and c take d5, and this sort of positions might be better for white, and I think they are. So we have e take d5, there is f4, e5 is protected, now the pawn on d5 is quite weak. Okay. So d5 is not possible. We have this queen b8, Giri is waiting, Giri keeps on waiting, Wesley So with a4, putting the pawn a bit better. That's nice approach, h6 as well, Giri just continues, keeps on waiting. We have knight to c2, queen, rook d8, rook d1, queen b7, Giri just keeps on waiting. So he is asking Wesley So, you are doing better, but what's next? And it is not easy to break these hedgehog structures for white. On one hand, white is doing better, but on the other hand, it's so difficult to do something against the black's pawn structure. Yeah, it looks like white is dominating, but in fact, it's so hard. So difficult to find something. To play a5 somewhere, it is one of the ideas, but after a5 we must be careful that black might be able to play b5, and of course b take a5 is always possible. As well, in case we start to move something with on the a file, we have to calculate all the time the move d5, because d5 is always very dangerous, and in case at some moment Giri is going to play d5, the whole position of white might crash like a card house. This is why for Wesley So it is not easy to proceed, and from the typical ideas we have one idea of playing a5. This is a typical idea for white in some in this kind of structures. Usually as well we have the knight not on c2, but we put the knight on d4. So it's a bit strange that Wesley So keeps his knight on c2. Personally, I like the knight more on d4. Now we have the rook on d1. So maybe the idea of Wesley So is to get his queen over e1 to g1. So we have this pressure on the b6 pawn, which is not a bad idea. To get his queen to g1 looks strange, but once again, it is not bad. So we have h3, bishop e7 played. Not much is changing. Wesley So keeps on waiting basically with white. And Giri, of course, waits with black. If it is a draw, no, it is still, of course, not a draw. A lot of pieces on the board, and Wesley So is going to continue at some moment with something more dynamic, because Wesley So needs to win his games. He lost his match yesterday. Today he needs to beat Anish Giri at least with 2.5. This is why we're not going to see a short draw in this game, at least I think so. Yeah, no joke, you think they will agree to a draw? I don't think so. I don't think so, no joke. I think Wesley So is going to give absolutely his best to win this particular game, because with white you're doing a little bit better objectively, and he needs to win. He needs a full point, so I don't think Wesley So is going for a draw. He will try to keep the balance, and he will try to push at some moment something. Yeah, Wesley lost yesterday, exactly, yeah, no joke. He needs a full point, and he has just twice white color, so he needs to push. He needs to push. Let us take a look at Nepomniachtchi, and yes, Nepomniachtchi is dominating now the A file, which is very nice, so white is doing a bit better. Nepomniachtchi is slowly outplaying Magnus Carlsen. Wow, surprising. This is very surprising. So we saw the move knight c4, and indeed Carlsen is going with this move rook d8. Very normal, very logical, because he wants to get the c6 and c2 is hanging. So this is what I've been talking about, that it might get dangerous as well for Jan Nepomniachtchi. But Jan Nepomniachtchi just with a simple move rook c1, unbelievable. I mean, how to play a move like rook c1? What a strange move, because you never want to move your rook from the free file, and rook c1 just to defend the pawn on c2. I think Nepomniachtchi probably underestimated rook d8, otherwise very difficult. Rook c1, to go intentionally for rook c1. I mean, maybe he saw everything coming and maybe he already calculated so many moves ahead that he sees that he's going to capture the a file, but or he plays unbelievably strong, or maybe it was more accidental that he played rook c1. I believe it is more the second, that he wanted to play something else and then he saw that there is nothing better than rook c1, because to play rook c1 to go with the rook from the free file, tough decision to make. So now we have rook b8 by Magnus Carlsen. Yeah, why not? Perfect. Queen a5 by Jan Nepomniachtchi, very interesting. And Magnus is playing queen d7. Why queen d7? Maybe Magnus could have taken on a5, and I believe in case black is worse, black is so little worse. It is very close to a draw in my opinion. In case Magnus would take on a5, he plays queen d7. Maybe he also played a little bit for a win, because he played queen d7 almost at tempo. So he might be able to threat now something with knight f4. I believe Magnus wants to keep the pieces on the board to still be able to win this game, game 1 with black. That of course would be amazing for Magnus, because yeah, he would be totally back to the match. Yeah, North is down, that's true. That's true. Sometimes, yeah, a safe defense move can be very strong, yeah. Definitely. So we have queen d7 with the idea knight f4 somewhere. Jan Nepomniachtchi with queen a7. Pretty logical. The rook on b8 is hanging. Now we have queen c8 by Magnus Carlsen. Rook a1 by Nepomniachtchi. Okay. King g7, king f1. Nice. Nice play by Nepomniachtchi. Rook b7, queen a8, rook b1, rook b8. Okay, they're moving a little bit, there and back, there and back. Both players seems to be waiting, or sort of waiting. Objectively speaking, I believe the position of white is a little bit better. In case Nepomniachtchi manages somehow to get his knight from c4 to d5, it would be nice, but very tough to get. And I believe in case Nepomniachtchi manages to change the rooks, it might be as well quite unpleasant for black, because the white queen would get to b7, no counterplay. So yeah, it's sort of little difficult for black, as I think Magnus would have to defend for quite a while. So let's see if Nepomniachtchi finds a way to do something with white. I think with black it's almost impossible to win this position, even if Magnus tries. He wants to win with black because he didn't change the queens. But to win this sort of position with black, I think it's almost impossible. Except Nepomniachtchi is really starting to play very hard for a win. And knowing Nepomniachtchi, this is a possibility, yeah. I mean, maybe Magnus just waits for Nepomniachtchi to go crazy, and then, of course, you are having chances as well to win the game. That's why, let's see what is Nepomniachtchi going to play next. Magnus has much more time. World champion with 10 minutes on the clock, so he plays very fast, and Nepomniachtchi just under 5 minutes. And we have some moves. So we have knight to d2, bishop to g7. Carlsen plays almost at tempo. Knight to f3, and Magnus is changing his bishops. Well, quite normal, because we had a bad bishop on f6. Now the bishop is getting changed against the good bishop on e3. So I think, objectively speaking, this should be a draw. I don't think white is better any longer. I think the position is now just equal. But Nepomniachtchi was 4 minutes on the clock. Very little time for Nepomniachtchi, because in case things will get at some point a bit more complex, you might just not have enough time. And maybe today the strategy of Magnus is to play that fast. I mean, Magnus is playing almost at tempo. He is not thinking at all. Yeah, he is playing by his feeling, and of course Magnus has a great feeling. Just usually Magnus is not just feeling the moves, but he is as well calculating the moves. So he has this amazing feeling, plus he has a very nice calculation behind it. And right now he is trusting much more his feeling. because he's playing just so fast. Okay, let's see. Now we have Wesley So against Giri, and yeah, many things did happen here. So we had this h3, bishop e7, queen e3. So Wesley So is going for the b6 pawn. Maybe words, yeah. 15 plus 10, that's correct. Queen b6 is a threat. Queen a8 by Giri. Okay, so Giri doesn't like to get his rook to b8 just to defend the b6 pawn. He tries with queen a8. Queen to d2 back by Wesley So, back of course by Giri. Rook b1, d5. Wow. So Giri stops to wait, because I think Giri just could have kept on waiting. Rook b1 is as well a waiting move. There is no direct plan, of course, with rook b1. So instead of waiting, Giri goes for this d5 push, because it seems like he's sure that this is working. Otherwise, he would just keep on waiting. And we have take, everything on d5, bishop g5. Okay, very nice. The queen on d2 is under attack. Very unpleasant, this bishop to g5, because in case of queen d3, there is knight f4. Very strong bishop g5. Knight to e3, knight e7. So Anish Giri wants to take next on d5. d6 played by Wesley So, knight f5. Again, the pawn on d6 is hanging, and in case Anish Giri manages to get this pawn on d6, I think black might be already doing better. This is quite typical for these hedgehog structures. In case black is managing to get d5 or b5, usually it is d5, black is sometimes doing just better. So Wesley So needs to find something. He goes with queen to d5 and rook c2. So the position is getting very exciting now. Actually, bishop on f2 is hanging, pawn on d6 is hanging, bishop take b6 is possible. So we need to calculate this sort of positions quite exactly, because or it's good for black or it's good for white. We must be precise. I still believe Wesley So is not risking much. I think in case you want, you can find a draw with the white color. So Giri is risking a little bit more than Wesley So, and this move d5. Let's see if Giri made the right decision to play d5. It might be a good decision, but still it is very uncertain, because in case white is able to take now on b6, I guess Wesley So might be better. And in case bishop take b6 is not working, then of course the position of black, I think, is very nice, because rook take d6 is coming next. Let's see. Wesley So still with 4 minutes 30 on the clock. Giri almost 7 minutes. Giri is playing very fast this game as well, controlling very nicely the time, which is important, because we all know how fast Wesley So can get. At some moment, Wesley So can start to play so fast, very fast. And this is putting, of course, big pressure on his opponents. So Giri knows it, that's why to have a little bit more time on the clocks is quite important. We have knight e7 played. So it means, I think, a draw. It means I don't see any chances for Wesley So to win this position. I think Anish will just take with the bishop on e7. Wesley is going to get the pawn on b6, and I think Anish might even just take on d1, play rook b2. I think it is just a draw. Maybe there are some very, very small chances for white, but objectively to win such a position, I don't think it's possible. So we're going to see a draw, I think, in the game Wesley So against Anish Giri. Well played by both. A nice game, which is quite nice for Anish. Yeah? He has 4 games to make 2 versus 2, then he is pathing to the final. Okay, no joke. Okay. Sure. And Nepomniachtchi against Magnus Carlsen are still fighting. Still the position is pretty equal. Nepomniachtchi with very little time on the clock, just 2 minutes for Nepomniachtchi. Magnus might be able to put a little bit of pressure because of the time of Nepomniachtchi, but in case we are evaluating the position, it is just a draw. Not much is going on. There is Rook A8 coming, so Nepomniachtchi wants to put as well a couple of tricks against Magnus Carlsen, so theoretically Rook E8 might be dangerous somewhere. Magnus can easily repair it with the move Rook E8. Magnus makes some pressure on the E4 pawn, but Nepomniachtchi is going to make some pressure on the C7 pawn. The position is still equal. Still, I think we can expect more or less a draw here in the game Nepomniachtchi Magnus Carlsen. And Wesley So against Giri. Giri managed to keep double rooks. Let's see if this been a smart decision. Rook E8. Okay, I'm not 100% convinced. Let's see if Giri took the right decision, because we have this rook on B1 and now the B pawn is quite strong. On the other hand, of course, it's great to have these two very active rooks. But the white rook on B1 bothers me personally quite a lot, yeah. Very tricky, very, very tricky. Anish needs to be precise to make a draw. Not sure why Anish actually kept his both rooks on the board. The white rook on B1 is really scary. Okay, now we had a small restart, as No Joke told us. And we're back to Nepomniachtchi against Magnus. Not many changes, still the position is a draw. Oh, No Joke, thanks, perfect. So we have Anish with the move Rook A2. Okay, perfect, he wants to get the A4 pawn. A5 is sort of obligatory still. There is a danger of getting B5 next. Bishop to E7. Interesting. Bishop E7. Wesley, I guess B5. Why not to get the pawn to B5? I think B5 is pretty logical, because sooner or later I think B5 is a must. So why not to play right now the move B5? Bishop D4 first. No idea why Bishop D4. Because I don't see a big sense in Bishop to D4 right now. B5 is not a threat any longer, and Bishop on D4, I don't know where Wesley So is going with the Bishop on D4. I think Giri might even just play Bishop F6. So after changing the bishops, I think the position is just a draw. So let's see why Wesley played the move Bishop D4. I still believe we're very close to a draw right now. Anish played nice move Rook A2. Very nice to provoke this move A5, so there is no more B5. So yeah, I think Anish is gonna hold. And Jan Nepomniachtchi and Magnus Carlsen, yes, we have a queen endgame. The position is a draw. We have very symmetrical pawn structure. So it seems like we have a double draw in the round 1. And yes, 3 more games, 3 more chances for Magnus Carlsen and Wesley So to be back. Otherwise, bye-bye between these two players, two great players, and we will have a final between Jan Nepomniachtchi and Anish Giri. And I think both of them, they still did not reach the final in the previous events. So it will be for the first time for both of them. And of course, Wesley So and Magnus, they played twice against each other in the finals, already twice. And twice Wesley So managed to beat Magnus. I think unbelievable result, yeah, to win against the world champion twice, because okay, to beat Magnus once it's very, very difficult, but maybe possible. But to beat twice Magnus Carlsen in this rapid time controls and the blitz time controls, it's an amazing achievement, because Magnus is just so strong. He's so strong when it comes to blitz chess, rapid chess, to all of this short time controls. Really amazing job by Wesley. Okay, Wesley So and Anish Giri. Yes, we have a rook endgame, and Anish is going with a move rook a4, bishop c3, rook c2, so some changes. Now we have this rook endgame with an extra a pawn, which is a draw, and it is quite an easy draw right now, because we have this bad pawn structure for white. With black, I think Anish will continue with rook a4. Yes, we have rook a4 played, rook a6 and h5. I think h5 is quite important as well. He might try f5, f4. So I don't know for if Anish decides f5, f4 or h5 and h4. And I think to win this position with white is almost impossible. h5. We have h5 and h4 coming. So h5, h4, then the black rook gets to a2, so h4, rook to a2, and black will just keeps on waiting, or maybe first even check on a1, king h2, and h4 is even more safe. Yeah, I think to give a check first, king h2, and then h4. So the white king has no options of moving. And yes, it is just a draw. It is just a draw. Super little chances for Wesley So, but they're so small. I think Anish will easily manage to make a draw, which is a nice result with black. Next game, Anish is white, and totally 3 more draws, and Anish is in the final. Jan Nepomniachtchi already made a draw against Magnus Carlsen. As expected, we have an equal queen's endgame, and yes, it is just a draw. It is just a draw. We just saw a very high level game, actually. A very nice positional game between the both players. We saw some interesting ideas. We have to remember this, for example, knight f8. Very nice by Magnus Carlsen to bring his knight back to the game. Then we saw this g3 h4 setup. Very nice by Jan Nepomniachtchi. And knight d2, knight c4 as well, nice idea. So a lot of nice positional ideas between the two great players, but it ends all just into a draw. Also here, king h7, very nice, king h7 followed by bishop g7, bishop to h6. Yeah, something like that. We always have to remember these ideas, and we have to collect them from these great players, because they are giving us the baselines. Something like, and in case we look at the time of Magnus, he has 9 minutes 56 seconds. After the move king h7, he has 9 minutes 55 seconds. So he spent just 11 seconds, because he gets this 10 additional seconds per move. So he spent 11 seconds. He knows exactly what is the right plan. Yeah, king h7 followed by bishop g7 and bishop h6. So he exchanges his bad bishop. So quite similar idea. For the guys who do play the King's Indian, we have a lot of these ideas. In King's Indian, it's one of the main tasks. In case you manage to exchange your bad bishop from g7, usually you're doing fine. So quite similar here. But anyhow, great idea, bishop g7, bishop to h6, and it all ends slowly into a draw. Nice game, but yeah, in case you play well, you make a draw even against the greatest players of the world. So we have a draw between Jan Nepomniachtchi and Magnus Carlsen. Wesley So still tries to do something, and we have, I think, indeed this h4 played instantly, a6. Now Giri just gives a check and rook a2. Yeah, well, it is just a draw. It is just a draw. There is not much to try for Wesley. I think Giri might just go even with king g6. Or maybe g5 first. No risk. I think g5 is even safer in case the white king starts to run, which is one of the only ideas. And king g7, exactly, king f1. We have king to f6, and it is just a draw. the white king will get to b1, so we just keep on waiting on the a file, and then in case white king is running somewhere, we start to check the white king. Giri even goes for king f4, king to g3, even nicer. So it is a draw on the spot, so there's nothing even to worry about for Anish Giri. Nice, very nice. Anish Giri makes a draw against Veslitsov in the first game. After that, I think they're usually making this 15 minutes break, and then game 2. And game 2, we're going to see Magnus Carlsen with white pieces. So Magnus will have to show something with the white pieces. He has no return, no point of return anymore from Magnus. 3 games left. He needs to score from the last 3 games at least 2 points to be back into the tie breaks. So in case Magnus scores 2 out of 3, we are going to see a tie break, blitz tie break between Magnus and Jan Nepomniachtchi. So in the next game with the white pieces, Magnus absolutely needs to show something. Okay. So the game still goes on, but I guess we are going to see a draw. Yeah. Most probably. Rook e8. Rook takes a7. I think somebody offered a draw. Yeah. Okay. So the game is done. I guess they will agree now to a draw, because to play such positions is making not much sense. Any tricks here? No, medics, I don't think so. I think it is just a draw. No more tricks left. So we see a draw. And we have, I think now, approximately 10 minutes of a break. So yeah. Let's see. Maybe let's solve some puzzles, because we have approximately 10 minutes. And let us not waste some time and just go for the puzzles. Maybe we will manage to solve some puzzles. Okay, so white move. We need to try to get the pawn to a8. I guess should be the main target. How can we manage it? I think should be something connected to rook b8. So in case we play rook b8 directly, there is queen to c6. So this is obviously wrong. So we need to give a check probably first on b7. King's go somewhere, and rook b8, queen a4 check, king b6, queen b4 check. Not easy. How to queen? We have king c7, rook b6, king b7. Yeah, it might be winning. So we have a very active guy in the in the chat who is explaining us the rules of chess. That's nice. Good to know. No jokes with no joke. No jokes with the admin, no joke. Okay, let's see if rook b7 is winning indeed, and I think it is the right solution. I thought rook b7 and now rook b8, because yeah, it is right. So we have this queen a4 check, king b6. Now we must give a check on b4, otherwise a8. And now we have this king c7, so only one check on a5. And what is very important now, that we have the idea of playing rook b6 check. Yeah, this is why we need the king on the 6th row, And in case kings go somewhere, we have this king to b7, and a8 is game over for black. So quite a nice puzzle. Okay, next one. Black to move. Can we do something with rook g5? Yes, I think we can. I think we can. Of course, you may suggest something. In case you have some propositions, be a bit more active in the chat. It would be nice, guys. You are so silent. Except, of course, North is down. North is down is always with us. But the others seems to be a bit shy. Propose something. How to win here with the black pieces. I think I have a nice idea, but it would be nice to know what you are thinking. Maybe you want to suggest something? Okay, so I think rook take f3, queen b3. Okay, so we have rook f3. In case of rook f3, I think white might just take on f3 with a queen, and to queen b3. It's possible to play queen b3, but it seems to be a bit too slow. We have to be more dynamic. Maybe we can be more dynamic with rook g5. Rook g5. Rook g4 is a must. Now we're taking rook take f3. Queen take f3, and maybe we can take on g4. So we have this pin, and rook on g4 is hanging. Let's see if rook g5 is correct. Rook take f3 and rook take g4. So we have now this check on d4. I think maybe also queen g5 might be winning. So two options. Personally, I don't know which one to choose from. Queen d4, queen g5. Hard to tell. I think queen d4 is looking a bit more forced, but queen g5 is looking nice as well. But I think queen d4. Yeah, it is queen d4, so we are lucky for the current moment with guessing the correct moves. And after queen to e3, again we have the choice of queen f6, check, king e1, and now we give this check on a1, which seems to be like a mate. Very nice, yeah. f6, a1, so left, right. I think it looks like the best. Yeah, it is correct. So in case we go back and we check on the position of rook take f3, queen take f3, I think to win such a position with black is almost impossible. Maybe we're having perpetual check, but not more than that. So to take on f3 is a bit premature. And queen b3 is the other suggestion of US Dave. Queen to b3, it feels a bit too slow. Queen b3, it's possible. Yeah, I mean, you can play queen b3, but it feels like, well, yeah, okay, many choices now for white. We might see rook to e3 defending the pawn on f3, so it's not concrete enough. Yeah, North is down, definitely not an easy puzzle, but a nice one. Next one, till the guys are making a break. I think we still have 5 minutes, then the games will continue. And of course, we're going to be back for the games. Till then, let's solve. Let's try to solve this puzzle, white to move, and let me see if I can solve it myself. Many different options now for white. It's never easy to solve a puzzle when you have so many different options. I think I got the solution. Yes, I think I got it, but not an easy one. It is not an easy puzzle. Yes, very tough one, actually. Just let me be sure if If I really got it. No, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe actually I am thinking of a wrong starting move. Or maybe not. No, I think I might be correct, but... Yes, I think I found it, but a tough puzzle. Very tough puzzle. Interesting. Queen b8, king e4, rook h4. Nice idea. Very nice idea with the rook h4, but I think it's not enough. It's not enough. Queen b8, king e4, rook h4, king to d3, and I don't see a win. We have bishop f4 idea. Also good idea, but we still have this king to e4. We have to be very careful with the move king to e4. So, what else? What else? Bishop f6. Yeah, bishop f6 is looking nice. What do you think, guys? Bishop f6? Wait a minute. Okay, let's wait a minute. Queen b8 and then queen to h7. Wow, you're having a strong queen. My queen doesn't go from b8 to h7. Actually, I can tell you a very funny story about real things over the board. So let's say queen b8. So the queen is here. You can't get to h7. But there was a very funny story once. I don't know if you know that, guys. The story is that Veselin Topalov, being a world champion, he took with his own knight his own queen. It is a true story. It's not a joke. He been thinking for a long time, and I think he took with his own knight his own queen that been disturbing him. So sometimes funny things do happen, yeah. Queen h8. Queen h8 check. I don't know. Queen h8. King to e4. I don't see something. That's nice. Bishop f6, king e4, rook h4 idea, yeah. This is a nice idea, but okay, bishop f6 I think is the right way, but king f5 is more dangerous. I don't know why Lichess is playing actually king e4. I thought king to f5 is everything else than easy. Yeah, very dangerous move, king f5. We're going to check king f5 afterwards, because after king e4, indeed, we have this move of rook h4, king e3, and we are able to take the bishop on d4. So white is winning, but I thought much tougher is the defense with king to f5. How do you win this position now? Try to win it. Very difficult. There is this mate on c1, we should not forget, yeah? Rook c1 is just a mate. So, first I could not find an easy win for white after king to f5, but then I thought, yeah, I think I got it. I found a way to win this position, but not easy. Because in case we're taking on d5, for example, this is wrong, yeah? Because we can win the bishop on d4, but there is rook c1 coming, and we're losing the rook on h1. So, no easy win. We have rook h5, okay, and king g6. So, how to win this? By the way, in case of king g4, there is a very beautiful mate now with queen g8 and g4 mating the black king with queen g7. Very beautiful, I think. So king g6, and now the last move of the game, and I think this is rook to g5. Very difficult move to find, yeah. Queen g8. Queen g8 is not enough, I think. King to f6, and the king escapes to e7. This is what I thought first as well. Yeah, queen g8 is mating, but it's not. So we have to find this rook g5, and in case of queen g5, we're taking back with a bishop on g5, and the bishop controls the square c1. So this is quite tough to find, I thought, and quite a beautiful line. So this is why I've been instantly not 100% sure what actually to play after king to f5, because bishop f6, king e4, rook h4. I saw it, but after king f5 I thought, well, how to mate the black king after king f5, because it looks like a complete mate, but not so simple, yeah? Rook h5, king g6, it looks completely winning, but we're having this mate on c1, and yeah, not easy, not easy. But then I saw rook g5 and bishop takes. We are getting control of over the square on c1. There is mate coming on g8. So the position of white, of course, is just winning. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this few minutes of puzzles, and let us go back to the main event. And of course, yeah, to the games. Straight to the games. Magnus Carlsen with the white pieces. He has to win. He's going for Nimzo, and Nepomniachtchi is surprising him with Queen's Gambit. I do not remember that Nepomniachtchi been playing Queen's Gambit. I think Nepomniachtchi is a typical Grünfeld player or Nimzo or something, but not Queen's Gambit. Very interesting. So we have with bishop on b4. Yeah. Knight c6, so we have Rogozin. From Queen's Gambit to Rogozin, and Knight g2 by Magnus Carlsen, and it seems like Magnus is not very well prepared today, at least in the Rogozin lines, because he has spent already so much time on the first moves, and of course, yeah, Nepomniachtchi just managed to surprise him. Usually in such cases, we could expect short castle. Magnus goes with a3, black takes on c3, there is knight takes c3, d5 is a little weak, but then black just might continue with knight e7, c6, so the position is in the area of being equal. Maybe some very small advantage for Magnus Carlsen, but a really very small one. So short castle is the most obvious option. Maybe there is something like bishop to d7. Now we have this little trick with knight d4 coming, because white is unable to take on b4. There is check on c2, and black is winning the queen. But in case of bishop d7, Magnus might be able to play queen b3 with even more pressure on the pawn d5. So I'm not 100% sure if bishop d7 is actually the right way to play. I guess personally I would castle short here with black, and I think after a3 I would just take on c3 and play knight e7. I believe it is just a very slightly worse, very small advantage for white, and it's okay for black. Let's see Anish Giri against Wesley. So we have Anish Giri with e4, and Wesley goes for the Berlin. Now it's a very interesting moment if Anish Giri is going to force a draw or he is going for the endgame. He's going for the endgame, so Anish is going for the kill. Anish is not playing for a draw. In case you want to make a draw against Berlin, you are choosing the line with rook e1, knight d6, and knight take e5. So to lose this sort of position is almost impossible. We see so many draws in this sort of positions. So in case Anish wanted to draw, he might have forced a draw, but Anish wants to fight. He goes for the endgame. Of course, we have the move h3, knight e7, knight c3, one of the main lines. Now it's very interesting if Wesley So goes bishop d7 or h6. So bishop d7, we have the line where black king will move to c8 most probably. It depends if Anish plays now rook d1, because in case of rook d1 probably we are going to see king to e8. But as well, if Anish goes b3, it depends. It depends very much now on the next move of Anish. Just a second, because I want to read the comment from Bornhus. Yeah, Bornhus, there are a lot of funny stories inside the chess world. This is true. Okay, 94 by Anish Giri, very interesting. I think not a very popular move, knight to e4 instantly. Usually we see much more often rook to d1 or b3, so knight e4, b6 by Wesley So. Alright. Maybe Anish wants to try something with knight g5 and e6, some direct play by Anish Giri. Is it really possible, this knight g5 e6 idea? Personally, I think it's not the right way to go on for white, and we do see the move to rook e1. Okay, very normal, king c8, I think. This is what we might expect from Wesley next. Let's see if Wesley is going to play king to c8. Yes, king c8 played, and Anish needs to decide now where to put his bishop from c1 over b3 to b2, or maybe even bishop f4 and bishop to g3. Quite an interesting moment. Let's see. Let's see what Anish is going to play next. Bishop f4, b3. Maybe he's still going to try this knight g5, but personally I do not like it so much, this knight g5 move. Sometimes we have as well the idea of playing knight g3 and knight to h5. It's very nice for white to get the knight to h5. Just it's usually very hard in case of knight g3. There is always this h5 possibility. So knight g3 directly, I don't think it is the best. Maybe first g4, but after g4 you must be ready because h5 might be very strong for black. So let's see what Anish is going to play. Maybe king h2, so preparing the move g4, let's say king b7, so we have this g4 h5 king g3 idea. Now the pawn on g4 is defended. Let's see what is going to happen. Till then we can check on Magnus. And indeed we have the move short castle. Okay, we did expect it a little bit. a3, take, and knight e7, yeah. So we have the very normal continuation. Nepomniachtchi plays very solidly today. Bishop e2, c6, very normal. The black knight goes to h4, which is perfect. Yeah, knight h4, queen g6, sort of provoking this move g3, because of the g3 the black is always going to have enough counterplay. The main idea of white is to get the pawn to b5, then bc, and to play against the pawn on c6, which might be slightly better for white. But in case black is managing this g3 weakness around the white king, then black is going to have enough compensation. If you need a black bishop on f5, north is down. Not necessarily. Usually you're playing bishop f5 to avoid bishop d3 or something similar, but the main idea of black is actually to change these bishops. So in case Jan Nepomniachtchi is managing this knight d6 and then he gets his bishop out of g4, then the position of black is completely equal. So for black it is very important to change his bishop from c8 against the bishop on e2 to equalize, of course. So we have b5 played by Magnus Carlsen. Most probably Nepomniachtchi is going to continue with, I don't know, it would be nice to get the knight to d6, but it seems to be almost impossible, because how to get the knight to d6 now? I think knight d6, is it working? In case Magnus is taking on c6, there might be something very crazy, like bishop h3, with the idea of playing rook c8 now. And then we have this pressure on the c file. Let's say rook c1, maybe rook c8, queen take d5. Can this be enough compensation for black? I'm not sure. I mean, maybe there are some tricks, but in case there are no tricks, this position is just winning for white, so very risky. I don't think we're going to see knight d6. Maybe bishop d7, which looks a bit ugly. I mean, to play bishop d7 is not the right choice. Maybe Nepomniachtchi might try to bring some peace inside the game, but the question is where. Okay, interesting. Let's see what Nepomniachtchi is going to play next. Knight e7 possible, but I don't know. Then black knight belongs to d6, so it would be very natural to put the knight to d6 in case possible. Let's see. And Anish Giri. Okay, so we have knight g5 and knight d6 played by Anish Giri. Whoa, what is this? Very interesting. Knight d6 and king to d7. Anish takes on e7. Yeah, I think it's just a draw. So yeah, Anish first pretended that he wants to fight very hard, but yeah, finally it is just a draw straight out of opening. Even maybe Wesley Saw might be able to try a little bit to play for a win, having a bishop pair, but I think White should have enough compensation to, or enough chances, let's say, to exchange his knight against a bishop now. Should be something possible, I think. Maybe knight e4, then check on d1, knight d6 somewhere. I think it should be okay for White, so we are going to see a draw. Quite strange that Giri went for this knight d6. Of course, knight g5, knight d6 idea. It looked exciting, but of course Giri knows that king d7 is going to be played by Wesley So, or you have something, or it is just a draw, because next move of black, king c8, of course, in case of rook d1. So rook d1, there is king to c8. Yeah, White is unable to take on e7, of course, because the rook is hanging on d1. So you're obliged to take on d8. You might play knight e4, knight d6, and hope it is a draw. But yeah, it is basically a way of forcing a draw with the white pieces. And Giri could have done it without playing d4. So in case he wants to make a draw with white, which is objectively not a bad choice. He won the match yesterday to make a short draw, to save a bit of energy, 2 more games. Yeah, very normal choice, but usually in case you want to make a draw, you make it not with a move d4, you make it with a move rook e1. And you just take on e5, so we have these lines of Berlin, which, yeah, are, or let's say most of them are ending in a straight draw. Let's see, then Magnus Carlsen against Jan Nepomniachtchi. Ooh, the position is getting very sharp now. So we have this g3, knight to f5, h5, yeah, nice. h5, h4, good idea by Jan Nepomniachtchi. B takes c6, b takes c6, rook g1. Magnus is preparing against the move h4. We still have h4, h4 played by Jan Nepomniachtchi, and so fast. He just spent a couple of seconds on playing h4. Magnus takes, of course he takes, he has his rook on g1. And we have this queen f6, h5. Well, I don't know, guys, if the move h4 by Jan Nepomniachtchi been really so nice, because it looks dangerous for black. White is just having a pawn up, and maybe Jan Nepomniachtchi still has some compensation, but it looks so strange. Why to play h4? Why to give a pawn with an h4 move? Little strange. I think in case somebody else would be black, he would not play h4. Okay, Nepomniachtchi is very aggressive guy, but h4 is maybe just too much. Yes, North is down indeed. I think I would not play h4 as well, because it looks so scary. Magnus just played rook g1, so he wants to take on h4, and still Nepomniachtchi is pushing for h4. A bit strange. Maybe he will try to play something like c5 now. So let's say c5, knight take d5, bishop b7. Okay, it's possible, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure at all in all these moves of Nepomniachtchi. I think Magnus should be doing better now, because at c5, maybe Magnus might try not to take first on d5, but he has a lot of moves. A lot of different moves now with white, and to take later on d5. So yeah. Let's see what Nepomniachtchi is going to play. In my opinion, Magnus is having a better position now. So, very important game for the world champion. He might be able to win this game, and then he is of course back, because then he would lead with 1.5 to half, and yeah, 2 more draws, and we see a tie break. we see a very nice tiebreak. I think blitz games between these two guys, like Magnus and Nepomniachtchi, they are one of the best of the world. So, or maybe number 1 of the world, or maybe number 3, 4 of the world in blitz chess. It's going to be so exciting if we see a tiebreak between them. I think it's going to be a great tiebreak. Back to Anish, and is it a draw already? No, they are still fighting, but I guess we're gonna see a draw very soon. Of course, Anish wants to get his knight to d6 first. He wants to play knight d6 next. And we have this opposite bishop color endgame, which is a draw. Yeah, it is a draw. It is just a draw, and I guess the guys will agree now to a draw. So Anish with double draw in the round 1 and round 2. He has to draw 2 more games to be in the final. Anish is very close to the finals. 2 more draws, and Anish is in the final. It will be the first final for Anish Giri. Magnus Carlsen, indeed, we see c5 played by Jan Nepomniachtchi. Yeah, and knight d5 played by Magnus. We have bishop f3 move. Very interesting, bishop f3. Magnus is not scared of some crazy tactics because it's almost a mate. So of course knight g3 is not working because rook take g3 and the rook protects the bishop on f3. On the other hand, there might be something for black now. I don't see anything, but there might be something. So maybe queen to d6. Trying to get this knight on d5. Yeah, let's see. Let's see what Jan Nepomniachtchi is going to play next. I think queen d6 is looking not bad. We have as well the option of playing queen to e6. So it's getting very sharp now for at least a couple of moves. Queen d6, queen e6 in case black takes on d5. We have rook to d8. Yeah, but I think white is just doing much better in this position. So it's not really a solution for Jan Nepomniachtchi because here he will have to suffer a lot to make a draw. And I think the chances to make a draw are very small. So yeah, white is doing much better. And in case of queen d6, I think knight f6 should be the plan of Magnus. Jan needs to take, and we have bishop take b7. So as well, in the current position, it looks everything else than great for black. Still, it is a fight. Of course, it is a fight. Rook b8, c take d4, and it is far from over, but white is doing just much better. So excellent winning chances for the world champion. Let's see if Magnus can convert it. I think he should be able to. But let's see. Yeah, North is down. I totally agree to your words. In chess, you have indeed this feeling, yeah. It's really an internal game. There is no end for chess, so zero chance of knowing even small percentage of the game. Okay, Anish already with a draw. No, not yet. And Magnus Carlsen. Oh, we have an endgame. So indeed, Nepomniachtchi takes on d5. Magnus with a move queen c6, approaching an endgame. And rook to g5, knight to e7, rook g5. Why Magnus is playing rook to g5? It's a bit surprising to play rook g5 because it gives a chance to Nepomniachtchi just to get his knight back to e7 with a tempo and to get the pawn on e3. A bit surprised. I'm a bit surprised about this rook g5. I think Magnus should have had something better. Maybe just e4 first. Hard to tell, but rook g5, knight e7, because now I think Jan Nepomniachtchi is having again some chances for a draw. He's going to take on e3, so very bad pawn structure for Magnus Carlsen, which gives some chances for a draw. Bishop f3, okay, d take e3, I guess. Let's see if we have d take e3. I think it is the best chance of Jan Nepomniachtchi. He needs to take the pawn on e3 in case he is not taking on e3. I don't see how he wants to hold to a draw. Maybe he's thinking about f5, but it's strange. Yeah, he takes on e3. Okay, everything normal. And it's interesting what he's going to play now. Maybe rook to d3, which looks pretty normal. We can expect rook e5 by Magnus. What do you think, guys? Magnus will manage to win this position, or Nepomniachtchi is holding it to a draw? You like black here? No, white is having a clear advantage. White is better, but the question is how much better? Nepo is holding. Let's see. I believe it is still not an easy task to hold this position. White is doing better. White is doing I think, quite significantly better. So not easy to hold it. Not easy to hold it for black. Objectively, I think it is a plus-minus position. White is doing better, but of course there are some chances for Nepomniachtchi to hold it because the rook is nicely placed on d3, the knight is getting out, the second rook might get out, so decent chances of holding it. Just 1 minute, I'm going to be back. 30 seconds, 1 minute, and I'm back. Okay, so I'm back. And what do we see? What are the chances of Nepomniachtchi to hold this position to a draw? What is the main advantage here? Yeah, just a pawn up for Magnus, and we have the bishop, so theoretically an endgame would be always favorable for the bishop side. Still some chances to hold a draw for Nepomniachtchi. Let's see. I think it's a very important moment now in case Nepomniachtchi manages to hold it to a draw. I think he's going to win the match, but a difficult task to hold to a draw here. Magnus with still 5 minutes on the clock and Jan Nepomniachtchi with 8. So some advantage on the clock. I think for Nepomniachtchi it's quite important to do something with a knight on d6. In case he manages to get his knight to some better position than d6, then his chances of holding a draw will improve significantly, but it is not easy. Where should be a nice position for the knight on d6, it's just so shaky. Knight should go somewhere, but the question is where to put the knight from d6. Not an easy task. Maybe we're going to see indeed rook b3, just to try to capture the e3 pawn. Nepomniachtchi is thinking, and Anish Giri and Wesley Saw, yes, they already agreed to a draw. So we have a double draw in the match between Anish Giri and Westisov for the current moment. Yesterday, Anish Giri, he won the first match out of 4 games with a double victory in the round 3 and 4. Actually, very beautiful victories by Anish. So he is leading. Westisov needs a full point in the next 2 games. Otherwise, he is not getting to the final. Let's see if Westisov will be managing to recover. For the moment, Magnus Carlsen is trying to win his game against Jan Nepomniachtchi, and Magnus Carlsen is in the same situation as Wesley. So he needs a win. He needs a win today. He is doing better, but the question is, of course, how much better. Rook b3 played by Jan Nepomniachtchi. This is something that we've been expecting. Let's see. Let's see what is the next move of Magnus Carlsen. He might try something like Rook c7. Looks not bad. Maybe he's going to try something like Rook c6. Let's see. Maybe just a silent king to f2. Yeah, north is down. Good idea, Rook c6. I think so as well. Rook c6 might be very strong. 4 minutes 30 for the world champion, and we see the move Rook c6. Yeah, north is down. You're almost as strong as Magnus Carlsen. Next time, maybe we can apply for your participation in the Super Tournament. Rook c6. Let's see what Jan Nepomniachtchi is going to do next. This problem with the knight on d6. Not constantly. Yeah, north is down. You have to work on that. You have to be stable to play with the top guys. But in any case, we would cheer for you. So. Okay. Knight on d6 is a problem. In case Nepomniachtchi gets his knight somehow to f6, he might be able to fight for a draw. The knight on d6, very difficult. A bad knight on d6. It is a hard task to do something with a knight on d6. Nepomniachtchi thinking now for a very long time, and indeed it's difficult to find a move. Yeah. What should Jan play next? There's maybe bishop d5 coming. There's maybe Rook d5 coming. There's maybe Rook a6 coming. It's getting tough. It's getting tough to defend such a position. Still, Nepomniachtchi is very creative. So let's see. Maybe we're gonna see Rook bc3 or something. Yeah, Rook bc3. It looks bad, but maybe it's still the best. At least knight c4 idea is sort of possible. North is down. Stable is knight on d6. Yeah. What to do? What to do? North is down. Sometimes life is like that, yeah. Okay, let's see. Jan Nepomniachtchi. What is going to play Jan? He's going for king f8. Amazing, king f8. Rook c8 would be a mate now, but there is of course knight c8, yeah. But king f8, very funny move by Jan Nepomniachtchi. Just to go with his king almost into a mating net. The idea, of course, is in case black manages to change pair of rooks, so we have this king e7 coming instantly, but it's so dangerous to play with the king on the f8. You're almost mated, and I believe Magnus might try. Just rook a6 looks very solid. On the other hand, Magnus needs to take care about his time. 3 minutes 30. Very little time for Magnus Carlsen. He tries with a5. Safe decision. Safe play. Safe play by Magnus. Very difficult for Nepomniachtchi to hold to a draw here. Very, very difficult. Maybe he might try even something like g6 because there is just nothing better. just to get g6, at least this idea of playing knight f5 might be possible somewhere. No, he goes with f6. Wow, f6. Hard to say if f6 is really something playable, because now the black king on f8 is having a terrible position. There is rook e6, but after rook e6 knight f5 is probably coming, so we have this threat of knight take e3 and knight to h4. So f6, okay, maybe f6 is possible. It looks very bad, but maybe it is the best chance. Nepomniachtchi tries to get his knight to f5. The problem of black, of course, the king on f8 is now almost in a mating web. So maybe still rook e6 is possible, and then we have this check on c8 and maybe rook e8 defending. But okay, not that obvious, yeah. Not that obvious, maybe not the best. Maybe North is down. Indeed, that Nepo might hold this game, but it would be unbelievable. I think in case Nepomniachtchi holds to a draw, I think he will touch the final. To play a draw in such a position, it is very difficult. So we have rook e6, knight f5. h6 played by Magnus Carlsen. Wow. h6, very beautiful, yeah? What a beautiful move by Magnus, h6, because in case now knight e3, there is rook take e3 and h7. So there is no way to avoid h8. And in case you check on b2 and you're taking on f3, then there is still h8. And rook c8 check. Very nice. So h6, knight takes h6. At least white won a tempo. Still, the pawn on e3 is hanging. Still, there is knight f5 coming. So it is not over. It is still not over. And Jan Nepomniachtchi with 5 minutes on the clock, 4 minutes 51 seconds, and Magnus Carlsen with slightly more than a minute, very short on time. White, I think objectively still good chances to win this position for Magnus Carlsen, but being so short on the time, the knight will get back to the game at some point. We have this check on b2, actually a very unpleasant check. What is actually Magnus planning to do after rook b2 or rook d2? I am not sure which one. Maybe with a d2. King g3, and we just take on e3. Well, I think it might be a draw. Rook d2 check. What is happening after rook d2 check? I think Magnus underestimated rook d2 check, at least hard to understand. Rook d2 check. In case rook d2 check is possible, I think the game will end in a draw. Let's see. Yes. Nepo is going to give it, as he gave a check on d2, so we have this king to g3 and knight f5. So he is even not taking on e3, he's going directly for knight f5, king f4. Why knight f5? He wants to take on e3, then have this idea of playing g5, or maybe he wants to give a check now on b4, but it's crazy. Why should Nepo do it? This is crazy. He wants to mate Magnus Carlsen. He wants to mate him somehow on f4, but I think it's too much. It's too much. How to mate the white king on f4? Yeah, it's funny. It's funny how the life can go, yeah? Suddenly it is Nepomniachtchi who is trying to win the game. It is not Magnus Carlsen any longer. It is Nepomniachtchi who is pushing for a win. Rook to f2. So after rook f2, of course, we have this g5 threat. In case Magnus Carlsen takes on a7, there is king g6, defending the knight on f5. Well, maybe Nepomniachtchi is pushing, yeah. He's pushing indeed to win the game with the black pieces out of nowhere, yeah. Nepomniachtchi had such a bad position in the endgame. Then Magnus Carlsen with few arrows, king f8, f6. Great defense by Jan, really great defense, because it looks bad, but in fact, great defense. And now the things are open. Magnus Carlsen was under 1 minute on the clock. He takes a7, king g6. I think king g6, yeah, we see king g6. The threat, knight h4, the threat, rook take e3, Magnus Carlsen with rook c7, so in case of knight h4 there is rook take g7 coming next. Very interesting moment. In case of rook e3 we still have rook take g7, so basically rook take g7 on, at almost anything, so there is king h6 now by black. Maybe even something better is possible. So let's see. King h6 is, I think, quite a decent option. King h6 played by Jan Nepomniachtchi. So Magnus takes, rook take e3, rook g7 mate. Or is it a mate? I think it is a mate. Rook e3, rook take f3 is a mate. I think Magnus Carlsen just blundered a mate. Rook g7, rook f3, king g4, f5, king h4, and rook h3 is a mate. I think Magnus blundered a mate. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. This is crazy. I see no escape for Magnus Carlsen, and I think it means game over. Game over for the match. In case Jan Nepomniachtchi wins it, it is 1.5 to half for Jan Nepomniachtchi. He just needs a half a point out of the next 2 games to pass to the finals, and I think it is game over. Magnus with 30 seconds on the clock. He's trying to find something, but what can he find against rook takes f3 next? I see nothing. I see no defense for Magnus Carlsen. Suddenly the rook on a7 is so misplaced. Out of nowhere comes Jan Nepomniachtchi, completely out of nowhere. Rook to c5. So he tries to defend against the f5 move, but I think it is game over. Rook to f4. Rook to f4 I think is not working because we have this move g6, yeah, and f5, bim, mate. So Magnus plays rook c5, but I think it is not enough. It is not enough. It is game over. It is game over. G6. Yeah, Jan Nepomniachtchi is giving a mate to Magnus Carlsen. I think just rook f3 is a mate, or even this rook. I think it does not really matter even. Rook f3, yeah. f5, rook h3. Yeah, Magnus Carlsen resigns. Unbelievable win from Jan Nepomniachtchi. In case we take a look, let us take a look at this position. I mean, just a pawn down for Jan Nepomniachtchi. Bishop versus the knight. There is nothing. Absolutely no danger whatsoever. And it seemed like Magnus Carlsen is so close to win the game. Rook a6 coming, rook take a7, and out of nowhere Nepomniachtchi is playing this king f8. It looks so strange to put the king on f8 because rook c8 might be a mate. Of course, there's a knight on d6 for the current moment, but still. So king f8, a5, pretty logical. And out of nowhere f6, even more weakening everything, but maybe the best. Maybe the best. f6, very nice play by Nepomniachtchi. Of course, it is easy for white to hold to a draw, but Magnus plays for a win. And h6, which looks very nice. And check, and rook a6. Maybe check actually be not the best to let the black king run out. And I think Magnus underestimated the move rook d2 check. So now comes king to g3 and knight f5. Very beautiful knight f5 because I've been sure he's going to take on e3, but of course knight f5 seems to be much stronger. Rook f2, very nice play, because in case of king f5 we have this idea of taking on e3 or take f3, take e3. Rook a7 and king h6, rook takes e3. And there is no more defense against the mate. Rook take f3, amazing. Amazing win by Nepomniachtchi out of nowhere. He had such a tough position, I mean super tough position. It was looking close to being lost. And suddenly, yeah, the things are turning. He's winning this game, so he is leading now with 1.5 to half. He needs one more draw against Magnus Carlsen. And Nepomniachtchi is in the final. He won his match yesterday against Magnus 2.5 to 1.5. Very exciting games. And today, I think, yeah, Nepomniachtchi should not complain about his luck. The luck of Jan Nepomniachtchi is today with him. He is winning this terrible endgame. I think, objectively speaking, in case we would speak about classical chess, I think it is close to being a lost position. And he's winning it. He's leading now 1.5. Yeah, and it's gonna be very difficult for Magnus. He needs to win the both games, both game number 3 and game number 4. Psychologically, after losing such a game, it is so difficult to play. I think you just want to quit, and yeah, you just have a feeling that you should switch the sport, or better not play anything any longer today at least. And well, Magnus needs to focus now. Magnus needs to try to be back. Psychologically so difficult. And Jan Nepomniachtchi playing great chess. He's playing great chess, very sharp, very well prepared, fighting till the very end. So Nepomniachtchi is in a great shape, definitely. And of course the luck of Nepomniachtchi is with him, which is not to be underestimated. The luck. So as you see, in chess you need to be lucky. You need to be lucky as well. To be lucky is a good thing everywhere. So we have Wesley Saw. The game of Wesley Saw has begun already. And Wesley, his last game with the white pieces, Wesley needs to try to score. In case he makes a draw now with the white pieces, he has only one last chance in the game number 4 and with the black pieces, and this is a very difficult task against Anish Giri, because Anish Giri is a wall with white. So Wesley Saw really needs to win this current game. We have d4, knight f6, knight f3, g6 and c5. So we're back in sort of Grunfeld structures. The main opening of Anish is, of course, or one of the main is Grunfeld, so he knows exactly how to play in Grunfeld, the setups, the main ideas. Anish is confident and he plays quite fast. Wesley Saw 11 minutes 20 on the clock. Okay, let's see what is Wesley Saw playing next. He should try to do something not to lose a pawn on c5, because I think in case Anish manages to get the pawn on c5, knight on d2 is not perfectly placed. Usually we have the knight on c3, and even then the position is very close to be equal. So for Wesley Saw now it's crucial. He should try to hold on the pawn on c5, something like b4, very dangerous. There is knight e4 coming, but maybe still there is a way to hold the pawn on c5. In case of queen c2, I guess Anish has this move knight to a6, so the pawn on c5 is still under attack, and it's gonna be very difficult for Wesley Saw to do something. Actually, maybe knight b3, but I don't believe in moves as knight b3. There is bishop f5, knight b4, knight to c2 is getting so tricky, so dangerous for white. So I don't know what will be the next move of Wesley Saw. Maybe he's searching for, or maybe he knows a way. He knows a way not to give the pawn on c5, but hard. Maybe something like e4. I'm really not sure. I'm really not sure what Wesley Saw is going to play next. A very crucial moment. He needs to find a way to get to hold to the pawn c5. Yeah, Yeah, no joke. Chess is a very cruel game. Very cruel. As we spoke yesterday, yeah. Chess is so cruel. You play great, you make one mistake, and it's done, yeah. Very unfair, actually. It's interesting, in case the rules of chess would allow you to have one take back, it would be very funny, I think, to play a normal game of chess when you have this one chance of taking back your move. I think it would change. It would change a lot the game of chess. Okay. Wesley So is thinking, still thinking. Only 9 minutes on the clock, and we are just move 6. We saw it so rarely. Usually the guys are very well prepared, and this time they are thinking a little bit more than usual. So, what are you thinking? Do you think that Wesley So will be back? Or do you think that Anish Giri is going to hold to the finals? My personal opinion, I believe in Anish. He plays very well this time. He's well prepared, doing everything correctly. I think Anish Giri is going to get to the finals. And interesting, yeah, what we have the move e4. So e4 finally played by Wesley So. Of course, Anish takes on c5. Knight take e4 would be a blunder. So we have queen a4 and queen takes on e4. Which is, of course, yeah, just piece down. So queen takes c5, bishop d3, short castle, short castle. I believe black is doing perfectly fine. Anish is doing okay, so we have this bad knight on d2. Knight belongs to c3, so from d2 the knight is not that dangerous, and I believe, yeah, Anish is doing perfectly fine. 9 minutes for Wesley, so still 13 minutes 42 for Anish. Knight c6, very logical. There's rook d8 coming, bishop to g4 coming. I think black is okay. Black is perfectly okay in the game between Wesley So and Anish Giri. In case game number 3 is going to be a draw, Anish needs to hold game number 4 with white pieces to a draw. And we're going to see the final between Jan Nepomniachtchi, most probably, and Anish Giri. Big chances for now to see these two guys in the final, and already approximately in a month from now they will fight against each other on the candidates, and they're fighting for the spot to challenge Magnus Carlsen in Dubai in November. I think it is already announced. Dubai, November, World Championship match between the challenger, so the guy who wins the candidates, and Magnus Carlsen. It's going to be very exciting. So April, middle of April will be an amazing event. This candidates, this is the second part of candidates, 7 rounds, 8 players. After the first round, Maxim Vashelagraf and Jan Nepomniachtchi are leading, having a result of +2. So it means 2 wins more than the games they lost. Okay, let us check on Magnus if the game has started. Sorry, game number 3. No, Jan Nepomniachtchi, Magnus Carlsen did not start yet. So we have Wesley with a move h3, preventing the move bishop to g4. Well, rook d8 might be coming next. And the bishop from c8, the bishop might develop as well on e6. So bishop e6, I think, is something we might expect. Or rook d8 first. I'm not sure, because in case you play rook d8, let's say after queen e2, we have options like knight h5, little trick. The knight might go to f4 or to g3. So rook d8, I think, is not bad. Something very useful. Let's see what Wesley So is going to play next. To put the knight to b3 is usually not the right choice. So yeah, not easy to react at rook to d8. Nepomniachtchi Carlsen? No. Still on hold the game. Okay, let's see what Anish is going to play next. My guess is rook d8. It's just too logical to put the rook to d8. Yeah, rook d8 played. Queen e2. Wow, queen e2. What is he? What Wesley So wants to do after knight to h5? Queen e2. Is it really working? Ah, knight h5. He wanted to go knight b3. Ah, okay. I thought already knight h5 might be almost winning for Anish Giri, but there is knight b3, and in case of queen b6 we have this option of playing bishop to e3. So no tricks for Anish Giri. This is why he's playing bishop to e6, knight b3 anyway, played by Wesley So, and I believe Anish might take on b3. I think it's okay for black to take now on b3. Yeah, he takes a knight d7 or something. Maybe knight d4 first. I'm not sure. Yeah, maybe knight d4 first. And then we get our knight to d7. So we're dominating on the dark squares. I think black is fine. In my opinion, Anish Giri completely equalized. And he is not in danger to lose the position currently. So knight h5 yet. Okay. Never too late for knight h5. So Anish is playing knight h5 at the current moment. Knight g3 is a threat, and in case of bishop e3 he will go knight d4 now. This is quite obvious. I think, or maybe queen d6 even. Yeah, but I don't know. I like very much to get my knight to d4. Maybe Anish planned something else, but I think it's good for black to have the knight on d4. Very useful. We're changing the knight. We'll get our bishop to d4. In case black manages to change the bishops, I think black might be even a little better, because actually for a long run black is having a better pawn structure, because b3, b2 might be weak somewhere, sometime. So I think Anish is out of danger of being worse. We have king h1 played by Wesley. And let's see what Anish will play next. I still like the move knight to d4. But maybe it's a bit too primitive. Maybe Anish is playing much more comprehensive. So yeah, maybe queen to d6, knight f4 with a tempo. I think also quite interesting. Maybe even just to play a6, just a slow play. So many choices. Very many choices for Anish Giri. So it's... And Nepomniachtchi and Magnus Carlsen still on a break. And of course Magnus, he needs this break. He just lost a completely winning position. It will be very difficult for him. Very, very difficult for Magnus to be back after such a loss in a much better endgame. Anish is thinking. Now we have 9 minutes against 8. Still black is not in danger. I think 0 danger currently for Anish Giri. He's choosing. He might go knight e5. So maybe knight e5. Maybe knight to d4. Maybe knight to b4. Even knight b4 looks a bit strange. Personally, as you know, I prefer the move knight to d4. Let's see. Let's see what Anish is going to play next. Nepomniachtchi, no moves. Still no moves in the game. Jan Nepomniachtchi, Magnus Carlsen. And Giri is still thinking. e6. e6. Very solid positional move by Anish Giri, so I believe at bishop e3 he's planning to get knight to d4. e6, okay, very prophylactical, solid play by Anish. e6 is very useful. Wesley So has 8 minutes to find a way to get a better position. It's gonna be a very hard task, very hard task. Let's see if Wesley Salt maybe can try something with bishop to g5. But even this is looking strange. Rook a4, very creative. Rook wants to get to c4 over a4. Very creative play by Wesley. Still, I don't see the big danger for Anish, but Wesley is trying. Rook a4, nice play. Okay, what are we doing now in case we would be Anish? I think still knight d4 is okay. Still maybe queen b6 with the idea of getting the pawn on b3 is possible. So knight d4, queen b6. What else? What else is possible? I think it should be the main choices. Queen b6 or knight to d4. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what should be the next one. And we have Jan Nepomniachtchi. We have Jan Nepomniachtchi against Magnus Carlsen. So we have Paulsen, and Nepomniachtchi goes for the main line with d4, knight take d4. Nepomniachtchi is playing himself, Paulsen, so it will be not easy for Magnus to do something. And of course, Nepomniachtchi just needs a draw to qualify for the finals. Amazing performance by Jan Nepomniachtchi, playing very strong. Maybe some of you saw the way he played against Nakamura. He played very nice games. And now in the match against Magnus as well. Yeah, great fighting spirit by Nepomniachtchi. Great openings. And of course, yeah, once again, the luck is with Jan Nepomniachtchi, at least at the current moment. He managed to win the last game in a very bad position. It is Paulsen, the opening called Paulsen, and black is usually playing the main line of Paulsen as knight c6 or a6. Queen b6 played by Magnus Carlsen. Okay, something completely random. Queen b6, the move is making not much sense. So the idea of Magnus is just to play something random, try to get a play, try to outplay Jan Nepomniachtchi, and I think it is a sign that Magnus Carlsen is very upset about the last game. Otherwise, he would never choose a line like queen to b6. This is sort of not very serious. By Wesley So and Anish Giri, so we saw this move rook a4 with the idea of getting rook to c4. Anish with queen to d6, so he wants to get knight to f4 and bishop to c2. Yes, there is knight f4 still with a knight d3. A6 by Giri, yeah. Okay, he keeps the things very solid, yeah. Black is still, of course, okay. Queen b6, grievous variation. No, this is not a grievous variation, and actually grievous variation is with a move without e6, knight c6. So what you mean is knight c6 and queen b6. Some people do call this grievous variation, but of course it is not very correct because Grievous been not the first to play this line. And after e6, queen b6, okay, this variation should have no name because it's just BS variation. So this is just something random. Magnus just wants to fight, yeah, he wants to find a way just to get a random position, but queen b6 is not serious. It is not serious. And Jan Nepomniachtchi, I guess, is a little bit shocked by this queen b6. Okay, he is thinking, why Magnus doesn't take me serious? I'm leading, I beat him yesterday, and now I have to face something like queen to b6. I mean, something completely random. Jan Nepomniachtchi with knight c3, very solid. Very normal. Let's see what Magnus plays next. We can expect anything. Maybe some of you saw the game Magnus Carlsen against Nakamura, where we saw this king e2, king e1. Actually, there are a lot of articles been after this game. Some people did complain why the guys prearranged a draw with e4, e5, king e2, king e7, king e1, king e8. Yeah, it looks a bit ugly indeed. But yeah, why to judge the players? The players are allowed to do what they like as far as the sponsors are happy. We should not judge. Okay, a6. So we have Paulsen with queen b6 and a6. It makes no sense, yeah, because the main line of Paulsen, or one of the main lines, is a6, knight c3. And just imagine to play in this sort of position, queen b6, it just feels insane, yeah, because the main idea is to get the pawn to b5 and not to have the queen on b6. Well, knight c3, a6 played by Magnus Carlsen, and Nepomniachtchi, who is usually playing so fast. So now he's playing much slower because he's just shocked. He is shocked by this move queen b6 by Magnus. So he does not really... he feels himself a bit... a bit weird, I guess, facing this queen b6 line. Ramos, we are not using any engine during our analysis here, at least during I'm commenting. And please don't write any engine evaluations inside the chat, because I'm not a big fan of engines. Of course, for those who like to use the engines, they might do it, but please don't write these evaluations inside the chat, because there are... it makes no sense. It takes away the fun from us. In case we look without an engine, we can think by ourselves. We might make mistakes, we might misunderstand something, but at least we're thinking, we're learning something. Evaluations of an engine doesn't help us. I mean, 0.8 by engine. First of all, it depends on an engine. Secondly, depends on the CPU power of the engine, on the processors of the engine. Depends on the program you are using. So it makes no sense to put the engine evaluations, because we're not learning from them. Okay, thanks for that. So a3 played by Jan Nepomniachtchi, quite typical move. A3 to avoid this bishop b4 lines. Very, very solid play by Nepomniachtchi, and I think it's going to be very difficult for Magnus Carlsen to do something. Why the queen is on, queen c7. This is so funny. So Magnus Carlsen is having Paulsen with just a tempo down. Can you imagine this move, queen c7? So basically admitting, why did I play queen to b6? Now I go queen c7. So we have, it's quite a typical position without the move a3 with a queen on c7, and now including a3, queen c7. I think Jan Nepomniachtchi feels himself like in a paradise. He's having a Sicilian, he's having a clear tempo up, and a3 is very useful move. Magnus Carlsen clearly out of shape. I think we can see that Magnus is just on tilt after losing this incredible game with white having a pawn up in an endgame. So I think the chances that Jan Nepomniachtchi is going to get into the final is currently extremely high, Magnus out of shape. Nepomniachtchi is doing everything perfectly right. Great opening by Nepomniachtchi, because he's having now Sicilian just with a tempo up. Magnus went insane with this queen b6, queen c7. Big advantage for Nepomniachtchi, and he just needs a draw. So yeah, we have very high chances of Nepomniachtchi getting this draw, or even winning the game and getting into the finals. Yeah, trying something new. Nah, I don't think queen b6, queen c7 is something new. Just lost of a tempo. He just lost the tempo. G3, yeah, G3. There is G3 line without a3 moves. This is why Nepomniachtchi is playing G3. But he might have played anything else except G3, F4, Bishop E3. Everything been looking nice already, just having a tempo up. Let us take a look by Wesley So and Anish Giri, because as well in this game we know that Wesley So needs a full point. Wesley So needs to win this game with the white pieces, and Wesley So with just 3 minutes 40 on the clock, but a lot of things has changed. So we saw the position after Queen D6, Bishop to C2, A6, Bishop G5, Rook C8. Ooh, I don't like so much what Giri is doing currently. It looks a bit strange because seems like Wesley is so slowly outplaying Anish Giri, but still there is Knight B6, Knight to D5 coming next. So it is everything else than obvious, and I think still the position of black is pretty solid. So very difficult for Wesley So to claim that he is doing better. It would be great to get the rook to d6, but also it's a bit dangerous to get the rook to d6. So he's taking on d8, h4, h5, trying to create something around the king of Anish Giri, but I think it is too slow. Knight d5 might be possible, then queen to a5. So we have this queen a1 check, getting the b2 pawn as an idea. I think Anish is doing okay. h5. Okay, very solid play by Anish Giri. Just he must be careful with the move g4, knight g5. It could go very fast, the attack on the black king. On the other hand, yeah, after g4, Anish is getting great chances to do something in the center, so he has to take care about g4. On the other hand, g4 is a very double-edged move and probably is not working currently. So Anish Giri with a very solid position, g3. Okay, I think we're gonna see the move knight d5 at some moment, queen a5. Let's see when. And let's see what happened after. For the moment, yeah, it's okay. The things are okay for Anish Giri. Rook d5, very interesting. Rook d5 with the idea of playing rook knight to d7. Anish just goes for the pawn on e5. He just wants to get the full pawn on e5. Is it really possible? A little dangerous to play rook d5, knight d7. A lot of things might go wrong. I'm not sure in the move rook to d5. I would prefer much more to put my knight on d5. But Anish, on the other hand, is seeing the things pretty forced. So rook d5, I guess knight d7 is something that should follow. Otherwise, why Anish played the move rook to d5? Let's see what happens next. In the game of Nepomniachtchi and Magnus Carlsen, so we still have a theoretical position actually, but usually this position we have without the move a3. So the pawn should be on a2 and then it would be a normal position. Yeah, I think a3 does not harm the position of white. So the things are still pretty nice for Jan Nepomniachtchi. Yes, let's see, of course, how the game will develop. In case of a draw, the match is done, and the same for Wesley So. In case Wesley So is going to lose in the current game against Anish Giri, Anish Giri is in the final. In case we see a draw, we still see the last game between Anish Giri and Wesley So. Anish will be white, and Anish will try to make a draw because it is enough to get to the finals. Queen d7, very solid play by Anish. So now the bishop on d3 is hanging, bishop to b5. Okay, Wesley is trying a little bit. I don't think it is enough. Yeah, it seems to be still extremely solid for Anish. 3 minutes 44 against 3 minutes. Still, yeah, enough time for Anish to play well. There is no direct danger to be very low on time. And Jan Nepomniachtchi against Magnus Carlsen. We have the move h3 to avoid bishop g4. So queen f3, d3, h3, very solid. Bishop g4 is not possible any longer. Bishop f6 is a threat. And the next move of white is probably rook to d1. Knight d7 played by Magnus Carlsen. I guess rook d1 by Nepomniachtchi. Why not to put the rook to d1? Looks nice. Yeah, rook d1 played. Knight f8, knight e6 by Magnus, but personally I like the position of white more. I think Nepomniachtchi is doing better. He might even try to get the bishop to e3 to change, or maybe first knight a4, then bishop to e3 afterwards to put some pressure on the d6 pawn. So knight a4, yeah, knight a4, then bishop to e3 or queen to d3. Big pressure on the d6 pawn. I think the position of white is just better, and once again Nepomniachtchi just needs a draw. In case Nepomniachtchi gets a draw, the match is over. So very difficult for Magnus Carlsen. Very, very difficult situation for the world champion. But of course, yeah, losing an endgame with a clear pawn up, it does not help. So knight e6 played by Magnus Carlsen. Bishop e3 by Nepomniachtchi. This is something that we've been expecting. It's good to change the bishops because d6 is a weak pawn in case we take it long term. Rook d2, rook d1, d6 is in trouble. Wesley So against Anish Giri. The time trouble is very near, and Wesley So is trying, yeah. Bishop c5, bishop d6. Maybe Anish needs to get his bishop on f8 at some moment to defend, actually. And yes, guys, by the way, I think I'm going now to raid to my channel, and we're going to take a look at the rest of the games on my Twitch channel, because currently I am now commenting for the leeches, of course. And yeah, the rest of the games maybe we're gonna watch on my channel. I just need to wait for No Joke for a second. I don't know if No Joke is here. Usually No Joke is everywhere. Just a second. So till the raid is not happening, let us take a look what is happening actually in the game. And it is bishop g5, bishop b5, rook d5. So Anish is going for the e5 pawn. Less than 2 minutes. Less than 2 minutes for the players. Bishop c4, the rook is hanging. Rook d7, probably just to be solid. Yes, we have rook d7, bishop b5. Seems like a draw. But a draw is not a great result for Wesley So. He needs to try to win. He needs to try to win, Wesley, because he has just 2 games left. So the current one and just the next one. So in case of Wesley, I would definitely try to win the game. But he seems to be repeating the moves. Bishop b5. Bishop b5 is a draw. So let's see if Wesley is going to play for a win or if he makes a draw. Bishop e7. So Wesley is playing for a win, but it's so difficult. Bishop take e7. He's giving away his bishop pair. The e5 pawn, it's still weak. I think even rook take e7. Yes, very solid, yeah. So yeah, zero chances for Wesley. So bishop take e7. I don't like this move. I don't like to take the knight on e7. What to play next for Wesley So? He can't move. I think Anish Giri might be even now the stronger party. I think even Anish might try to play a little bit for a win with black in case he would need to. But a draw is enough for Anish, so I guess we are going to face a draw between these two players. Even in case Anish would need to, he might try a little bit with black. Objectively, it is a draw, of course. No Joke is maybe not with us currently, but he He will be back soon, don't worry. And then we are getting to my Twitch channel. No joke, hi, please rate. Please help us with a rate. Thank you, no joke. Thank you. Rook c4. Rook c4, rook c5. So we have a better pawn structure for Anish Giri and actually much more time for Anish Giri. In case Anish is winning this game with black, the match is over. So rook c5. What will play Wesley so next? e5 is a weak pawn. There is a very unpleasant pin. The king on g2 is quite weak now. Not an easy task for Wesley So even to survive currently. Wesley So on the limit. In case Wesley is losing this game, it is over. It is directly over. And what is doing actually Jan Nepomniachtchi versus Magnus Carlsen? So we have this position with the weak pawn on d6. And Magnus just casting, so he is resigning on the d6 pawn. Still, I don't see any chances for Magnus Carlsen to be objectively better or to be even objectively okay. So, trouble. Magnus Carlsen is in trouble. And thank you for the rate. Thank you for the rate, no joke. The rate been perfect. Thanks a lot. Hello, Sledgehammer.